All right, hello everybody. My name is Jared Weathers. Welcome back to reviewing All Comers. Today, obviously my co-host for the day is Justin. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you, Jared?
I'm doing all right. So today I'm the host. He's the co-host. Next time we'll switch it up every other one, and so not one of us is the host, and the other one could be the co-host for every other show.
Yeah, that's right. So I believe I told you, as I call it, taking point. So when we say one of us is hosting or taking point, whatever you want to call it, whoever's hosting the show today, like today's Jared is hosting, so he will lay out the matches, a little bit of background about the show, whatever he wants to say about the show, and then I'll give my thoughts about said match and say what I need to as well. After him.
So today I'll be the host today, and I'm very excited for this one. Bash at the Beach '96. For those of you who don't know, I'm not going to spoil the end of the show because we'll get to that eventually. But this is a very historic moment, and kind of how wrestling is kind of viewed today. They took the real. It took more real characters than the cartoonish characters of the late 80s, early 90s, and made the biggest boom in wrestling history in the mid to late 90s, early 2000s. Made wrestling cool again, made bad guys cool, and really changed everything for professional wrestling. And this show was very historic in that sense, if not that sense alone. I mean, it's a very interesting turning point. All the backstage rumors and innuendo and all that kind of stuff is also pretty interesting. But we'll get to all that as we go through the show. So have you watched this before we had to review it?
Oh yeah, dude. You're talking to the man who grew up in a prominent NWA and WCW household. My father is a big mark for everything Jim Crockett Promotion stood for. And that bled into Ted Turner's WCW. Okay. So literally, I have videotapes of WCW content. I don't know if I own this one on VHS, and it's weird. We're just 2021, and here we are talking about VHS and collecting stuff. But right. Hey, if you want the OG WCW material, you about have to find VHS, because on the network, how they replace themes and cut certain things out, and But
except I think that's the only WCW show that they didn't replace any theme, because at least to me it all sounded pretty natural.
Yeah, I think you're probably right on that. I'd have to do a little digging, but yeah, I mean it sounded natural. I agree with you there on watching it on the net, rewatching it on the network. But before I rewatched it here recently, yes, I have seen it before. As a kid. Of course, I think I've told the fans in a previous episode, Sting is my favorite of all time.
Yes.
So,
I think it's the first episode, actually, because we had Sting on TNA against All Out.
Yeah. Prison yard match.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was telling my dad about that the other day, too, when I stayed over at my parents' house this weekend. But, because he works, at a penitentiary. But, Sting's my favorite, and when this happened as a kid, when you're younger, I tend to believe that most people, and like you said, times are changing in wrestling. The bad guy was starting to be glorified, and everybody, it was the cool hip thing. It was kind of like peer pressure, like, are you with the NWO or are you not? So as a kid, though, I couldn't believe it or not, I couldn't stand the NWO, and I didn't understand what Hogan was doing, Bischoff, all those guys. So I'm sitting there like, man, I want Sting to take every one of them out with his baseball bat, come down from the rafters. I lived for that suspense when I was a kid. So this was really starting to get the wheels in motion for what really sustained and even pulled WCW ahead of the WWF at the time.
Yep, for was 83 weeks.
83 weeks.
83 weeks.
Mr. Eric Bischoff, my man.
That's right.
He listens to this. Congratulations on going in the Hall of Fame, sir. And I'm a big fan, and you're an inspiration of mine.
Bow down even though you can't see it. So let's get some background on what led up to WCW Bash at the Beach '96. So For those of you who don't know, I'm sure most of you listening to this already know the history of Hulk Hogan and WCW. But if you don't know, Hulk Hogan actually left the WWF mid-93 to be an actor. That didn't work. So in 94, he signed a brand new deal with WCW. And then feuded with Kevin Sullivan in the Dungeon of Doom for some reason. It's really weird.
Right?
Kevin Sullivan was like a cult leader. And, he wanted to turn Hulk Hogan into a bad guy, which they did, kind of.
Kind
of. They tried it. It didn't work. He didn't like it. So as he's
That's
going
when he shaved his mustache and he looked so weird and he wore all black.
Yeah, it was not cool. It was not fun.
Yeah.
And so leading up through 95, Eric Bischoff actually talked to Hulk Hogan about maybe turning heel with his new, it hadn't come together yet, with this new thing he was working on for a little bit. And what was it? I think it was early 96. The curtain call happens in Madison Square Garden at a house show. When the Clique was breaking up, when Scott Hall and Kevin Nash went to WCW, and they're all facing each other. I think it was Kevin. It was Kevin and Triple H, and then
versus Scott and HBK.
Well, no, it was Kevin Nash versus Triple H.
It was Diesel and HBK versus Razor, and all four were in the cage somehow, and there was like a tag match at MSG.
It wasn't a tag match.
The infamous curtain call. Oh, it wasn't?
No, it was actually, I think it was Diesel versus HBK in the main event, and Triple H and Scott Hall are looking outside the curtain, and they're like, "Hey, can we go out and say bye to these guys?" And they're like, "Yeah, go ahead." So they all hugged. Someone brought a video camera in. That's not okay. Back then, it wasn't okay. And so then, obviously, the outsiders start coming in. Scott Hall and Kevin Nash start coming in and start sitting in on all the shows and just kind of messing everything up. And then it leads to Bash at the Beach 96, when they say that they have a third man for this. It's supposed to be a 6-man tag team match. They say they have a third man that's going to be at this show. And for weeks, everyone's speculating, who is it going to be? A lot of people thought Sting, but no one expected who it was, and we'll get into that later. But first, we're going to start off the show. They start off the show talking about the third man in the NWO. Like, it's not like they wait till the end. It's all through this show. So the first match on the show is Psychosis versus Rey Mysterio.
Oh, yeah.
Which at this point, Rey Mysterio is not a huge household name like he is today, or even 10 years ago. I mean, he was not a massive star back then. This is 7 years after he started, after being trained by his uncle, the original Rey Mysterio, which is a pretty fun fact. I gotta say.
Yeah.
This is a lucha match, so it's all high fly kind of stuff. Not a lot of. It doesn't really sound like a lot of people are into this one. I loved it. I'm gonna take you guys through some of this. So the first thing I wrote down was while Rey and Psychosis wrestle, Mike Tenay explains the importance of the lucha mask. Obviously, in lucha wrestling, masks are there to hide the people's faces, especially the bad guys' faces, so they don't get assaulted while they're walking down the street.
Yeah.
Because this is still in that kayfabe era,
Yeah.
And so Psychosis throws Rey out of the ring, then does a really nice. I wrote he does a sick suicide dive, but he has a really nice suicide dive. I really enjoyed it a lot. Psychosis drops a guillotine leg drop and keeps hitting the leg drop different ways. He kept doing it for at least 5 minutes. Like, it's just him dropping legs. So weird. Oh God. Tenay explains that Ray has been wrestling for 7 years, but is only 21. He's only 21 at this time. And he was wrestling, he has been wrestling for 7 years. Like, that is amazing. Oh, and then, Psychosis is 25, being the old man in the ring. Ray delivers a Hurricanrana, then throws Psychosis into the ring, hits another Hurricanrana, and tucks Psychosis under, which the way that he did it, I don't even know. Like, it was, that's an amazing move. Like, he did the Hurricanrana, and he tucked him, like, really close. So he was, like, pinned. But Psychosis kicked out. Hearing Brain making fun of Tenay for knowing all the moves is kind of weird because, like, Tenay knew every single move that they did, knew every single move, and the Brain's like, "What are you, some kind of wrestling historian? Like, dude, like, you have to know the names. You're on commentary."
Exactly. Yeah.
Come on. Anyway,
Heenan just trying to be a jerk.
Yeah, pretty much. Ray wins with a clean pin. I give it a 9 out of 10. What is your takeaway from this match?
My main takeaway when I wrote my notes to open the show, I was like, some people consider the curtain jerker match, the opening match of a card, an insult, but I don't really view it that way because you grab the fans' attention. If they put you on first, that should be an honor. If you're not in the main event, honestly, there's some wrestlers and people who prefer to be in the opener. That way their match is out of the way, and they get people excited for the show. I loved it. The one word I underlined, bump. This match is full of bumps.
Yes.
Because these dudes are flying all over the ring. As you said, Mike Tenay is explaining the historical background of, how they sell masks in the street and how in Mexico, Lucha Libre is king. And, WCW is now like, this is around the time, right, where they're starting to value the cruiserweights and talent acquisition. So these guys, Ray, Mysterio, and Psychosis actually had some matches, and they trained together, as they explained, but they had some matches in ECW before this, too. Some really good matches. If anybody's a fan of this rivalry, it's one hell of a rivalry between Rey Mysterio and Psychosis. I love this match. The finish was incredible. They did lots of Hurricanranas and stuff. And you said Psychosis was Mr. Leg Drop in this match.
He was, yeah.
But I love the finish because Psychosis was setting him up for a super razor's edge or outsider's edge, whatever you want to call it, like the high angle cross, high impact power bomb.
Yeah.
And Ray reversed it into a super Hurricanrana and got the pin. And I thought it was phenomenal. Same rating. I'm actually going to agree with your rating, 9 out of 10. I mean, I wouldn't change in terms of an opener, in terms of bringing excitement, in terms of something fresh around that time for WCW. Yes, this is exactly the way to start this show.
I agree. I don't know. I did write down the little skits in between the interviews. Do you want to go through them? I don't know if it's really necessary.
Well, I do know that the next promo, and you can talk about this. Like, I mean, if you want to talk about the promos, because sometimes there's champions, and the first guy they interviewed backstage, and he was watching that match, was Konnan. Mm-hmm. And Konnan was the WCW US champion at the time. And so you have Mean Gene backstage interviewing him. And Konnan has a match later that night versus Ric Flair, which is awesome because seeing Flair in the United States Championship picture, it just warms my heart because, I know everybody has their favorite secondary titles, whether it be like a television championship, an Intercontinental, whatever. I've always been a fan of the U.S. I've always loved the looks of the United States Championship. And, so seeing Flair in that. But anyway, they asked, or Mean Gene asked Konnan, essentially he's like, what are your thoughts on Flair and your match later tonight? Flair, And he says, Conan essentially says, without quoting him or anything, he's like, Ric Flair, you better, be on your game, and I want it to be a one-on-one. He brings up the fact that, he hasn't been in WCW way too long as compared to Flair, and he says, he hasn't had time to join a faction or, make friends or anything. And he says, so help him God, if, any of Flair's buddies get involved, he'll have to teach them a lesson to hurt them. Yeah. So in preparation for the match, that's kind of what I got out of that first promo. Essentially, your thoughts on Conan's promo?
I liked it. Obviously, Conan, at least back in the day, I don't know really about now as much. At least back in the day, he was a really good promo. Always liked hearing him talk. I basically just wrote down the same thing. He said he's going to cripple Flair's manager if he gets in the way, and how he's going to beat down Flair and all that. I gave it an 8 out of 10.
Okay. Yeah, I'll give that promo a good. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. I wish we would have heard more strategy about, because Flair is Flair still in WCW. So other than him threatening whoever he was going to, I get him being worried about outside interference, because Flair always seems to have a trick up his sleeve. But I wish he would have talked, he did a good promo, but I wish he would have said, hey, I'm going to target, not without giving away the full battle plan. He should say something like, Flair, I'm going to work the neck, or I'm going to, target you a certain way, and you're not going to do anything about it. I'm going to show you what's up and who about this new wave of WCW, this new talent.
Yeah.
Changing of the guard, kind of.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Because he's the champion.
Yeah. Yeah, he's the champion. Yeah. I think the championship's on the line, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Next.
I believe so, right? Yeah. I wanted to say the U.S. title is on the line.
I'm pretty sure. So the next is Big Bubba versus John Tenta. So Big Bubba is formerly known as the Big Boss Man in WWE, which will be known again a few years after this. It's a silver dollar on a pole match.
A good old Carson City silver dollar on a pole match. What a classic, right?
Oh my god. I couldn't believe this. So I just wrote down the silver dollar on a pole match isn't a good gimmick match. It seems like the beginning of what killed WCW. Big Bubba tried to climb it, but John Tenta threw him off on the top turnbuckle. This whole match is just them trying to climb the pole, really.
Yeah,
it's all it really was. Bubba chokes Tenta with the belt, and the ref isn't going to do anything, which is weird. Bubba tapes Tenta to the ropes. Bubba wipes Tenta with his belt. Oh, hello. Bubba then tries to cut Tenta's hair, which I thought was weird. Okay, but Tenta low blows him, cuts down the pole, and Bubba stops him. Bubba hits a spine buster and throws the ref so Jimmy could climb the pole. Jimmy got the silver dollar, and Tenta takes it away. Pins and wins.
Yep.
I gave it a 6 out of 10. I said I hope better for Tenta and better for Bubba. What are your thoughts on this match?
Okay, so the whole premise of it, you're in terms of doing gimmick matches.
Yeah,
you have to have two capable, and this is not a shot at God rest his soul. I'm not sure if both in or dead. I know that the Big Boss Man is no longer with us.
Yes.
Yeah. I want to say Tenta isn't with us anymore either.
No.
But Tenta, they explained, used to be Shark in the Dungeon of Doom.
Yep.
And you alluded to Big Bubba with Jimmy Hart, formerly Big Boss Man of the Federation years, of the early golden era, like Hogan days.
Wait, and they also mentioned Tenta was Avalanche? Was he Avalanche? Earthquake, that's what it was. Yeah, he was Earthquake. Yeah, they said it without saying it, kind of.
Yeah, they said he was. I forget how they put it, but they couldn't use the name. But they said, yeah, and he was also
He's like a natural disaster.
like
I
a
think
former like tag champ or something. Because wasn't it
Yeah.
Earthquake and Typhoon or something? The natural disasters, I think.
I believe so.
Yeah. Yeah. So both of these guys go back to the Federation days in the WWF. But regardless, so going back to my premise thing, you have two guys who are north of 300.
Yep.
And so, management's just like, you know what? What is the craziest match we could put these two in? And they were like, yeah, let's put some silver dollars in a sock or in a little it looked like a sock. I think it was.
Yeah. I think it was
something at the top of a pole, and we're gonna have them climb. How exactly is that gonna work without the pole? I mean, we're gonna have like a reinforced pole here or a lower pole, or just do it like a ladder match. If that's what would have been my suggestion, instead of having the silly premise of these guys are going to shimmy up the pole. We know that's not going to happen. Right. So they finally wisen up during the match, and Tina grabs the scissors, and he's trying to cut the pole to come down to him so he can just grab it. But Big Bubba stops him.
Yep.
And so it takes Jimmy Hart, as you said, to shimmy up the pole. He's not sure Tina's behind him because Tina takes care of Bubba. Tina gets the silver dollar, whacks Bubba over the head. 1, 2, 3. That's it. I'm going to give this a 4 out of 10, slightly below average. I mean, I have all the respect in the world for Big Boss Man. And, Tina, not bad. They tried to turn him face, but I think at one point in the match, he hit a low blow.
Yeah.
So, in terms of WCW riding their faces, which I'm going to give it a slight pass because he was with the Dungeon of Doom formerly. Yeah. But, I mean, just I wasn't really into it.
No, I wasn't either.
I just think it was kind of a filler before we led into our next promo and our next set of matches.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the promo? It was kind of all over the place.
Yeah, well, they went to what? Sting, Savage, and Luger next, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That was promo number 2. So we go backstage, and Mean Gene is talking about and one thing before I talk about the promo, commentary the whole night is saying that Eric Bischoff is missing. If anybody knows where he is, Eric, please give us a call. We miss you, man. We hope you're okay. Because they're alluding to that the NWO is so ruthless and being a bunch of renegades that also alluding to that are not under contract and that are still Vince's guys.
Yeah.
So they're alluding to that they kidnapped him. And so the next promo we see is one team from the main event, Sting, Luger, and Savage. And they have their face war paint on. They're ready to take out the outsiders and the third man. Mean Gene asks them, who do you think it is? What are you guys going to do going into the match? Savage says it doesn't matter who the third man is. They essentially the three are harping on the same thing, and I think Sting caps it off the best.
Yeah.
Because he says, the unpredictable, it makes you don't think, you just act, and that they're on their best game when they're not, thinking about. There's danger, there's fear, there's unpredictability involved, and that they're going to be ready for whoever the third man is, and they're going to take care of the ensuing NWO before the infamous, we'll get to the end of the show, but they're going to take care of business in the main event.
Yes. What's your rating for the show?
For the promo?
For the promo, yeah.
Yeah, my rating for the promo was, like you said, it was kind of all over the place.
It was.
They wanted. I wasn't really sold on what Luger was saying here. Sorry, hang on just a second. Let me roll up my windows. Somebody's backing up. Again, I apologize because I'm in a. My bad, people, because I'm in a parking garage. So if you hear the background noise, that's me. My apologies. I'll get it fixed. I was just rolling up my window. Now, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10 because, like you said, even though there's main event players here, it's all over the place.
Yeah, it is. And obviously with Savage, you never know where he's gonna take a promo. Yeah. So let's move on here. So the this next match is a tape fist match. Diamond Dallas Page versus Hacksaw Jim Duggan. I wrote Duggan is one of the strongest wrestlers. You know, one of the strongest shooters. Like he can't remember what he did, but I know he was like an actual athlete there for a while.
He was a football player, wasn't he? I'm pretty sure he played football. That's why he did the 3-point stance.
I think so.
I'm wanting to say Jim Duggan was a football player. I don't know where he played or who he played for right off. My guys, like such as Pillman, I know where they played. And I know that guys like Wahoo McDaniel too. So, I mean, you'll see that a lot of times, not to interrupt you because I'm going to let you, of
course,
introduce the match. But Duggan, he always did the 3-point stance from the corner, kind of the shoulder barge, clothesline type deal. Running attack was kind of his move. And I want to say he played football. And you'll see football players pop up in wrestling a lot of times, or, athletes from other sports. I mean, heck, Shaq was wrestling Cody on AEW just, a little while ago. So, yeah.
So it says that Jim Duggan was recruited by Ohio State, but he played football at SMU, Southern Methodist University, and then he was signed to the Atlanta Falcons, but was released after being plagued by knee injuries, which he also was plagued by in wrestling as well.
Interesting, because Goldberg also played for the Falcons.
True. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That is kind of weird, actually.
Yeah, and how they run Atlanta a lot of times. So yeah. And the power plant, right? It was in Atlanta.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a tape fist match. I had noted it was weird seeing DDP as a heel because after this he'll be face for the rest of his WCW run. DDP taped Hacksaw's legs together. DDP seesawed between the ropes and Duggan's fist, which I thought was kind of odd. Like Duggan threw him into the ropes and like got him.
He was going back and forth.
Yeah,
going down
back
and back up to a punch.
Yeah, it was really odd. DDP thrown into the barricade and ran into the post. Huge suplex to DDP. Duggan tried to go for another suplex, but DDP blocked it and threw Duggan down. DDP went to the top and got nut shotted, which is a thing that happened in all these matches. Duggan gave DDP a standing face buster. Dallas came back and gave Duggan the diamond cutter. Pins and wins. I said it was an 8 out of 10. I like Duggan and Dallas, but do we need a gimmick match? Which I don't think we needed one, but it was nice to see one anyway. So what did you think of this match?
It was cool seeing a DDP here. I've seen Duggan a bunch before. Duggan's tough, rugged, so in this case, the gimmick match works for both guys because, I found it funny at the beginning of the match because Duggan always incites the USA chant. And DDP just trying to be a heel, he's still a little green, I feel like at this point. But I like DDP. He's trying to tell the fans like, shut up, and I'm just sitting here like, dude, you're from New Jersey. like, dude, come on. The chant USA is not going to offend you. Like, you're American too. Like, and you're not buying it. But, no, I like the premise of this match, the tape fist match. I think they also called it, Lord of the Rings match or something weird like that too?
I think so, yeah, something weird.
Yeah, they showed something else too on the graphic as they were coming out. But no, I thought this match was okay. I'd say slightly above average. I thought I was like you. I thought the spot where him, if it would have just happened a time or two, but he kept doing it. Yeah. He kept on that spot in the ropes where he kept like a seesaw. Duggan would punch him, would go back to the ground, and then his legs would pull him back up. Thought that spot was a little weird. Now, also, this match made me notice the steps placement, which I know this is not. I'll talk a little bit more about the match in just a second, but WCW didn't have the steps on the corners of the ring near the ring post to like walk up. They had them right there, like as you make your way down the entrance, like straight up into the ring, like in the center of facing the entrance apron. And I thought that was weird because, somebody does like, and both of them are right there together. And I'm like, if poor Rey Mysterio or Psychosis would have done a suicide dive or one of them hurricanranas out there, ouch, bump.
Bump.
Yeah, bump, big bump. But no, I thought this match was okay. I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. I mean, really, like, DDP's still cutting his teeth a little bit. Duggan, I don't have much to add on Duggan. Like, I mean, I respect Duggan, but it just, I like the premise. The gimmick kind of saves it for me too. But I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10.
Okay. We're pretty close in the star or the
ratings department. Yeah. Glad to see that you and I like rate stuff similarly. Like, that's just, and a lot of times, I mean, we've differed. I think we only had an extreme difference on one or a couple matches, really, if I'm not mistaken. But most of the time, we kind of, have similar thoughts on it and good commentary to add on it, I feel like.
Yeah, I agree. Do you want to talk about the next promo, or can we skip it?
It's whatever you want to do. It doesn't matter. I mean, if you feel like, I just wanted to hit the first couple because I like the U.S. Championship and Sting, the main event. But if you want to hit any of the other promos that were on the show, you can talk about it, and then I'll give you my thoughts or however you want to go about this. If you feel like we need to hit them, hey, you're the host, brother. I'm co-hosting with you. So I've talked about the first 2 promos I wanted to talk about because Sting, obviously, and the U.S. Champ Conan. I enjoyed his first promo.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Basically, Mean Gene is talking to the Giant and the current WCW World Champion, Kevin Sullivan. Oh, no, the Giant's the current WCW champion.
Yeah, the Giant at that time was the champion. But he's with Kevin Sullivan. Yeah.
Right, he's with Kevin Sullivan. They're going to take on, it's Arn and Chris Benoit, 2 of the 4 horsemen later on in the show. That's literally all I wrote. I'm going to read you the entire sentence. Mean Gene is talking to the Giant, who is the current WCW World Champion with Kevin Sullivan, and they take on the 4 horsemen later. That's all I wrote.
I found it interesting. Like, I mean, it's a Dungeon of Doom promo. Like, not much to really say here. I just find it interesting that, yes, you want your main event to be the 6-man tag. I totally agree with that.
Of course.
But you think that you would want, maybe they didn't feel comfortable with putting the Giant against somebody just yet, or having him in a singles match. I just thought maybe, with the tag matches on the card, you would want your world champ maybe in a singles match, even if the title wasn't on the line. Give us a good match out of your world, maybe a singles match. Because sometimes, as you can well attest on, some shows we review or some shows you've watched, and it's kind of a critique of, I mentioned AEW earlier in this show. A lot of people say that, AEW is pretty tag heavy, but they've got a great tag division. Yep. Sometimes on shows, I don't care how good your tag division is, you can go too tag heavy.
Yeah.
So my only thought on this was maybe they could have had the Giant go up against somebody. I just don't know who. I mean, Benoit probably could have worked with him.
Yeah.
Benoit could have worked with just about anybody.
Yeah.
And would have been interesting.
Yeah.
But then Arn Anderson versus Kevin Sullivan doesn't necessarily sound enticing there. There does it, like if you were to split them up into single matches.
No. I will just say, though, this isn't like a 2 tag heavy show. This is more a singles heavy show.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a tag heavy show, but I'm just saying that, with the main event, when you have, and on the pre-show, I was thinking the pre-show too, because they put their tag titles on the pre-show.
Right.
or before they hit the air.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that on not to my taste, I didn't necessarily think this show was tag heavy. I'm fine with the match. I'm just saying that your world champion, the Giant at the time, is just being over. The Dungeon of Doom is starting to be overshadowed by this angle.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. So the next match is actually a tag team match: Public Enemy versus the Nasty Boys. A 4-man dog collar match, which is just another gimmick match. I was not in this match at all. I thought it absolutely sucked. I give it 1 out of 10. I don't even want to read what I got because it was so fucking boring. I went 1 out of 10. I don't even care. What?
Yeah. So. Yeah. I mean, I don't have much to add here. Public Enemy. You either love or you absolutely hate Public Enemy. I feel like.
Yeah. I agree.
There's some matches, like, unless there's tables involved somehow, they were similar. They're not even in the same league. I don't personally believe, but I'm going to throw them in the same sentence with these guys because of the table usage, mainly in ECW and other places when talking about Public Enemy. If there wasn't a table involved and they didn't get to do their table splash spots and stuff, they couldn't really shine. They were mainly hardcore tag artists. And then you put them up with the Nasty Boys, and it's. I'm like you. I wasn't feeling it. Didn't like a whole lot here. The gimmick was eh. Like, I mean, a dog collar match, you can't. I guess what I'm trying to say is you don't want to tarnish the legacy of the dog collar match, because think about what Piper and Valentine, the original dog collar match. Oh my God! Like, Piper lost some of his hearing.
Yeah.
Both of those men laid it all out there. I actually love the first dog collar match, but we're not talking about that. I think this match doesn't do justice to other dog collar matches, especially the first one. So yeah, I'm gonna be slightly nicer, but not even that much. Simply because the gimmick. I mean, it's cool to see dog collar matches, but this doesn't do it justice at all. 3 out of 10, and that's me being generous right there. I wasn't into it like you either.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with everything you said. Mean Gene is backstage with some security guards and calls them just Shield. He actually says that they're the Shield. That's what he says. Which is kind of weird. Yeah, that's really odd. He just threw it out there.
Yeah.
Next match: Disco Inferno versus Dean Malenko. This is for the Cruiserweight Championship match, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Which Malenko is the champion, the Cruiserweight champion currently, during this match.
Man of 1,000 holds.
Yeah. I just said Malenko starts off hot and heavy. Obviously, he always does. Slugs Disco. Disco pushes him. But Malenko actually rolls. He rolls back and then rolls back. And then gives him a dropkick, which I thought was pretty cool.
Right.
Yeah. See, now I don't think Dean Malenko gets enough recognition for the things that he does in wrestling.
No, he definitely does not. And you hear guys that he's worked with, like I know Jericho. Yeah. Another one of my favorites is good friends with Dean Malenko. Dean Malenko is, I want to say second generation. I know for sure he's at least a second generation superstar. I don't even know. He may be a third. He's at least a second. Because his dad was Boris Malenko, but I don't know if Boris Malenko's dad was a wrestler either. Either way, is he? Are you seeing second or third on generation on Dean Malenko, or about maybe Boris Malenko's dad? Because he's one or the other. He's genetically
second.
He's a second generation, like I originally thought.
Yeah.
So Dean Malenko's got everything you want, really, out of your champion. Like, I totally agree with their decision, to have the championship on him and put him in this kind of match. Disco Inferno. I mean, they were still building the Cruiserweight division at the time, so I don't mind the matchup. I can kind of accept it because Dean Malenko's involved in it. I just think that not bad. I think that Dean had to. Disco wasn't god awful in this match, but there were times, I don't know if you could maybe pick up on this. I think that Dean has to, depending on who he works with, sometimes Dean has to carry the match.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe he carried. Not saying Disco didn't carry anything at all, and not saying that Disco wasn't competitive in this match, but Dean, I would say, carried this match.
I agree.
Rating, I'd give it. I'm going to be more generous. I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Actually, I didn't mind it. A little bit better than average.
You know what's really funny about that?
What?
I also give it a 7 out of 10.
Wow. What are you trying to say something on me? Because honestly, no. Like 7 out of 10 is my rating on this. Because
that's what I said. I gave it a 7 out of 10 too. Yeah.
I swear we're gonna have to start picking different answers here, both of us.
I know.
People are gonna start saying they're sitting in the same room watching the same thing, writing the same notes or whatever. No, like Jared is in Michigan. I am in Virginia. Like no.
And I didn't tell Justin any of my ratings before we came on here. You don't know anything that I rated yet.
No.
So
one of these days we will find, before we progress, we will find a match where we're both like, one of us will be absolutely in love with it and the other will say trash. One of these days, brother, we will find one of those matches.
It might be coming up. Dean retains. Obviously, come on now. Of course, Dean Malenko retains. It was a good match. I think Disco also doesn't get enough recognition. He is a really good wrestler.
Honestly, yeah, he is a good wrestler. I just think when you work with somebody like Dean Malenko, there's a standard you have to live up to because, again, and I'm not saying, WCW, when Bischoff started writing the checks and acquiring talent, right, from various places, Malenko is also, because our next show is ECW, and I'm trying to get us some hype for the next show we're going to cover too, without, taking up too much time. But ECW is where, Psychosis, Rey Mysterio Jr., Jericho, Malenko, guys really
Steve Austin.
Huh?
Steve Austin. I mean, he had 2 matches, but he mostly did promos, and he became the Stone Cold character in ECW.
Yes, that's what I was about to say. That was really the birth of the Stone Cold character. Yeah. And then it's funny because he goes to WWF and everybody thinks, oh, he's Stone Cold from the get-go. Nope. Yeah. The Ringmaster, baby.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, back to Dean Malenko. Yeah, there's a standard you kind of have to live up to when you get in the ring with Dean Malenko. But yeah, for what it's worth, I agree with you. Disco Inferno doesn't always get enough credit. It really doesn't.
No, he does not. We could skip that one. So Conan. Oh no, wait, it's Joe Gomez versus Steve McMichael.
Mongo.
For those of you who don't know, Steve McMichael was a former football player on the 85 Bears team when they won the Super Bowl.
Let's not talk about that Super Bowl. Oh boy. Hey, and you shouldn't like the Bears either there, Mr. Lions guy, besides Vegas.
Listen, okay. My team has sucked for years. Good for true. The Bears. Come on now.
I mean, listen, I can't dispute Walter Payton and the Fridge and Singletary, Ditka, all those guys, but my team got slaughtered. I may live in Virginia, and to some, they might be like, he sounds like he's from, Alabama, Texas, wherever, that can tell my Southern draw. But no, believe it or not, I'm a diehard Patriots fan. And yes, that is without Tom Brady. And I don't want to get into it.
Okay, it's all right.
But yeah, so, Mongo played for the 85 Bears.
He did, yes. There's actually a really good documentary on it. I believe it's still on Netflix, I think. It's about the
Yeah.
85 Bears. Talks to Singletary and Ditka and all those guys. It's really, really good documentary. I highly recommend it if you like football. So the 85 Bears, I think he leaves after that year and goes to different teams, doesn't really make a roster, and then decides to do wrestling. Like you said, there's a lot of football players that decide to do wrestling. Which in the WWE right now, Titus O'Neil and Big E, both former football players.
Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns played.
That's true.
The Universal Champion played for, I think it was Georgia Tech in college, I want to say.
I think so.
Yeah. But yeah, tons. Even Baron Corbin.
Kansas City Chiefs, yeah.
Yeah, and Cardinals too. So.
Oh yeah, yep.
Brock
Lesnar, obviously.
He was a center. Baron Corbin, for people who hate Corbin, I'm about to give you some meme-worthy material. Just search, I think his name is Tom Peastock or something. Just search him when he was an offensive lineman, and then you can call him what I call him, and that's King Applebee's. Because I have a story about this real fast, and I promise we'll get back to the show.
Of course, yeah.
Little comedic relief about halfway through or however far along we are. So every time I used to go in and eat at Applebee's, I always looked at the way, their uniforms were. The black, so back when Corbin was the black shirt and the black pants. So back when Corbin was Constable Corbin and he wore all that black get up. I always used to say Applebee's is his favorite restaurant. He looks like the manager of an Applebee's. And then him and there's a meme, and I don't know if I can find it. I need to find it and save it again. There's a meme of him and Lacey Evans when they had their tag match with or their build up with Rollins and Becky Lynch. And the caption of the meme is because they're outside the ring and they're about to head towards the back because I think they just got beat up and Lacey's trying to adjust her wardrobe. And it says, when the manager of Applebee's gets done hooking up with one of the waitresses in the back and has to get back to work or something like that. And I just lose it every time. Oh,
that's pretty funny.
So we were talking about football players, not Baron Corbin, but I digress.
Right. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Stephen Michael, former football player from the 85 Bears, going against Joe Gomez, who is not a former football player, but is a wrestler. Stephen Michael goes to very, very easy moves early. Joe Gomez is trying his very best to make this match somewhat decent. Steve uses a lot of football references since he is a former world champion player from the 85 Bears. Steve did a neck breaker I thought was pretty cool. But Gomez kicked out of the pin. Tombstone and McMichael wins. I did not give it a rating, but I'm going to rate it like 3 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a little credit for McMichael, for Mongo. I mean, you kind of know the outcome here. Like, this is just kind of another filler, I feel like. They're trying to promote Mongo. Because they paid him. I want to say they paid him a decent little amount of change.
They did.
So, and later on he would join commentary and do stuff, with Horseman, all that. But for what it's worth, for a guy that didn't have the most training, just kind of getting in there. I'm gonna rate it right at average. And I'm being a little nice because Mongo doesn't have experience. So I'm going to give it a 5, actually. A little bit better. But, I mean, yeah, I'm not really into it either. It's average. I would say average because, where he's not trained, I'm being a little generous. Now, if it was somebody that was trained and somebody had been doing this for a while, I'd probably rate it, your rating, or a little lower, actually.
Yeah.
But I'm going to give it average for Mongo.
I will be a little. I will give him credit. He brought us Deborah McMichael, or Deborah.
True. He did.
He was the manager of Jeff Jarrett in the WWF.
Right. Because she was the manager of Jarrett, and then her and Mongo actually were married.
Yes.
And then she would later go on, as most people know, well, I'd say simply because most people watched the WWF or around that time, the Attitude Era was about to hit. Well, I mean, the Attitude Era was starting up, so it hadn't all went down yet. But Deborah went on to marry Stone Cold and be featured on WWF program.
Yep. And then he was accused of assaulting her, and then they got divorced.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So we're gonna move on from that.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna skip this thing with Ric Flair and Woman and Miss Elizabeth. Even though I gave it a 10 out of 10 because I like Ric Flair. Next match are Conan versus Ric Flair for the United States Championship. As they lock up in the corner, slaps Rick with Woman screaming. Woman screamed throughout this entire match when Rick got hurt. Conan has Rick in a submission, but lets go. Conan woos in Rick's face, which he hates. So good on Conan. Big back body drop to Rick, and now into a surfboard, which I thought was really interesting. And then Rick gets out, and then into a nice gorilla press slam, which is really nice. Woman kicks Conan in the dick. Flair flop, because you got to have Flair flop at least once in a match. Conan just can't keep Flair down, and with help from Woman and Elizabeth, Ric Flair, the new United States Heavyweight Champion. I give it 8 out of 10. What do you think about this match?
Yeah, I thought they meshed well.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I kind of, again, this is another one kind of back to back. I mean, if you're watching it around the time, I mean, WCW could go in a bunch of different directions here. And Conan, great talent. How you were saying about Disco Inferno too, I truly believe a lot of Conan matches are actually underrated. Conan, and they were right to have the U.S. title on it. And I had a feeling that things would shake out the way it did. Flair doing a lot of his normal stuff. Flair sells tickets. Bottom line, Flair's just like, the icon of WCW. Like, I mean, when you think of WCW, you really kind of think of just a few names. I mean, like, if you're not thinking of Flair, Sting, Goldberg, some of the real prominent ones, then
Hogan.
Yeah, Hogan. Yeah. But Hogan, I put more in WWF because he also returned back home. And he was always mega babyface like WWF. Well, Cena. Cena in modern life. But I'm actually going to give this one I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that it was the most technical or most, but added in there my love for the U.S. title, and Woman takes away a little bit from it. I would give it a 7 or an 8, but I really like the matchup and everything that went down. But as you were covering there, between Flair and Conan, they had some good technique, like some reversals and chemistry. They meshed a lot better than I actually thought they would. Because going in the match, I was like, I don't know how these two will work with each other, but I thought they worked excellent. Because I mean, I thought it was one of the better matches on the card for sure.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so the next match is the Giant and the Taskmaster, or Kevin Sullivan, versus Arn Anderson and Chris Benoit, 2 of the 4 Horsemen. Okay, so but before we get into this, I just have to say, going back and watching all these, and I've never watched Chris Benoit. Like I know I've told you, and I know I've told everybody else. I didn't start watching wrestling until 2015. So me going back to all this is all new territory for me. I've seen the last match of this show. I know what happens, right? But watching the rest of it was very interesting for me because I've never seen this show. which is why I
Yeah.
asked you who have. Yeah, I've never seen the show before.
Right.
At least most of it, except for the last match here. But I've never seen any of the show. And knowing about the history of Chris Benoit, watching him in action is very bittersweet for me because I know what happened to him about 12 years after this. But I can see why people liked him. I can see why people wanted to be wrestlers because of him. And I have to give, no matter what happens, I understand how awful it was, but you got to give Chris Benoit his props. I mean, he was such a good wrestler.
He was.
And you know what? I understand why people might get mad at that, but he was a really good wrestler. And I give him a lot of props. I really do.
Well, before we get into this match, listen, when we mention that name, because this is, if we review any other pay-per-view with his name on it, I just want people to know that, listen, I know it's hard to look past. I'm not saying forgive and forget because, I don't condone it. I don't think anybody condones what happened at the end.
No.
But in terms of, talking about the wrestling business, what he contributed to the wrestling business, the moments he gave us, for example, I'm about to bring up probably his greatest highlight. And I still just about cry to this day because if you have a best friend or somebody you love in this life, you can kind of put yourself in the shoes of either Benoit or Guerrero at the end of WrestleMania 20. And, I'm not really an emotional guy, but that still pretty much brings a tear to my eye. Going back and watching 20, seeing the end. So Benoit I feel like he was, okay, I'm glad he was higher up on the card. And I feel like putting him in the Horsemen was a smart idea. Because he had the intensity of Arn, probably even at times more intensity than Arn Anderson.
Yeah.
And he could also do all the little intangibles, the submissions, the high flying. He learned after Dynamite Kid. That's the whole reason he did the kamikaze headbutt or whatever you want to call it. Spread eagle headbutt, flying headbutt. Excuse me, off the top rope. But great worker, absolutely spot on. There's not really. You'd be hard pressed to find a Benoit match where he didn't impress you in some way, shape, or form. He worked well just about wherever he went. And, I think he was utilized. Later in WCW, he would be utilized even better. And then, of course, his shining moment, I feel like, WrestleMania 20. But, yeah, just for what it's worth, not thinking about personal lives, not thinking about the end, not thinking about, whatever you want to say about Benoit, but the man could wrestle.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's get into this. So the Giant and Kevin Sullivan attacked Anderson and Benoit during their entrance. McMichael hit the Giant with a briefcase. The Giant chased him backstage. I'm sure that was supposed to be leading to something.
Yeah.
This allowed Benoit and Anderson to double team Kevin Sullivan. The match officially started as the Giant returned to the ring. A pretty basic kind of match. I don't know, 5 out of 10. I don't like Kevin Sullivan. I'm not a fan of Kevin Sullivan. He kind of ruins everything for me.
I've actually spoke to him one time, and it was at a fan fest. And I'm not going to show any bias. I'm not a Kevin Sullivan guy either. Because for the longest time, I was angry at him. And I'm not really a conspiracy theorist. I'm not going to go back into it because we're talking about the match now.
Right.
But personally, there's only so much abuse a human body can take. I'll say that. When I talk to Kevin Sullivan, I don't think I'm staring at the man who had any connection to it. Yeah, did Benoit and Sullivan later over Nancy Benoit, woman, whatever you want to call her, did they beat the hell out of each other in shoot matches? Sure. To me, they settled their beef in the ring.
Yeah.
And I think Kevin moved on. But getting into this match, yeah, sort of your basic match. I don't see a lot of I don't know. I feel like the Giant really, they always just talk about, his strength and how he's a Dungeon of Doom member.
Yeah.
But, I was talking about this earlier in the show. I just, when you're in the position WCW was, and Bischoff is trying to correct this, and get them to go, they're going head to head, which we're about to see really revolutionize the show's good for. But you have to have a world champion that is not overshadowed by a faction itself or a storyline or something. And at the time, if I'm not mistaken, was this Giant's first world championship? I think it was. Right?
I don't know. Let me check. Keep going, and I'll
yeah. Now, if this was Giant's first world championship, which I'm thinking it possibly was, then I get not wanting to throw him out with the big names right away and have him show any flaws other than his strength, because the announcers just harking on the Giant, he's just he's the world champ. Okay, so that was his second reign. Okay, so I feel like at that point, honestly, if they wouldn't have had what they were going on later in the show and everything, they could have found somebody for Giant. But mainly my issue with this is the fact that he's in a tag match. I'm not going to really kind of basic. You don't really need to go over what necessarily happened in the match. I don't think, because it's just kind of one of those things that we're all ready for the main event. I feel like by this point.
Yeah.
And that's my issue with it all. The world champion is not really going back and watching this at the time. Because when you think of the WCW Big Gold World Championship, you think of great names and you're like, man, they were good champions. But I feel like they could have done the Giant a little better. I don't know why, I just do. Not necessarily talking about the match, more about him being involved.
Right.
I just feel like Paul White, the Giant, Big Show, whatever you want to call him, he was the next coming of Andre the Giant. You get those comparisons, of course, because of their size, but really, outside of the ring, Big Show is or the Giant here, we'll call him the Giant because that's what he was on the show. The Giant is really a great man.
Mm-hmm.
Outside the ring, inside the ring. If he respects you enough, he'll make you look like $1 million,
Yeah.
Good world champion. I think he was overshadowed. And so that's why I'm giving this match average, like you, 5 out of 10. Like, not really focusing on the match, but the players involved in it. We were talking about Benoit, now the Giant. Kevin Sullivan, I don't really mind. Arn Anderson's towards the end of his career. But, Kevin Sullivan, I'm like you. He just, it's essentially kind of a handicap match in a way, because Kevin Sullivan is more so just the manager, the mouthpiece in a way of, and the veteran of Dungeon of Doom.
Right. So we'll. What you're rating for the match?
Oh, actually, yeah, right at average, about 5 out of 10 too, as well. Nothing against it, but nothing really for it.
Right. So here we are at the main event.
Yep.
The Outsiders, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, versus. But this is before they released their third man, versus Randy Savage, Sting, and Lex Luger. So, this match, it was labeled as the hostile takeover match, by all the commentators.
Yep.
And so it was a handicap match for most of it. No, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Yeah. It was Nash and Hall for most of the match. You know, Sting had a Stinger splash. You know, Savage hit a axe handle. Basic stuff for these guys.
Yeah.
And it just, you know, it looked like we weren't going to get a third man out of this until Hulk Hogan.
Here comes down the aisle.
Okay. Hulk Hogan comes out, and it's really funny because Bobby Heenan says, whose side is he on? Which Bobby Heenan didn't know that he was going to be the third man. Or he wasn't supposed to know he was the third man.
Right. I don't think, what was it? I don't think anybody knew but Bischoff, Hogan, and the guys in the match, I want to say. I don't think anybody in the company, was for sure on who the third man was going to be, because I think you said this earlier, or you alluded to it, the company didn't even know if Hogan would do it, if he was going to be the third man or not. Originally, it was supposed to be Sting.
Yeah. Yeah, it was supposed to be Sting.
Boy. And that seismic decision would have been made. For all I know, my favorite of all time could have been like DDP or Booker T or somebody instead of Sting, you know. But like, Hogan finally did it. He's revealed as the third man.
Yeah, so
he comes out, and then what happens, Jared? What is born?
The New World Order of Wrestling, brother. So the backstage of this, so obviously Eric Bischoff went to Hulk Hogan first. Hulk Hogan was not sure if he wanted to do it or not, because he was actually thinking about retiring completely from the business at this time. After being in it since the late 70s, you know, he just kind of got tired of it.
Yeah.
So Bischoff's like, hey, you know what? How about you come be a bad guy for a little bit? And Hogan's like, I don't know, probably not. So he actually went to Sting. He's like, hey, listen, if Hogan doesn't want to do this, do you maybe want to turn heel and join this new faction?
Which makes sense.
Right. You know, because it was, you know, that would have been tremendous. The face of WCW at the time, turning on the company that made him a star.
You still have shock factor there, but not as much as Hogan.
No, you're right. You're right. No,
and I'm a Sting guy, but
well, it depends. The face of wrestling obviously was Hogan, but the face of the company was Sting.
Yeah.
So,
and then you still had Flair as a top heel.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when he was heel, sometimes they flipped him face.
Sometimes he's kind of a tweener most of the time. Yeah. And Sting was actually down for it. He was like, "Yeah, I'll do it if Hogan says no." And obviously Hogan said yes. Sting didn't turn heel till later, till 99.
Which turned out to be a great business decision.
Sure. And
I mean, you know, because who would have fought Hogan? My question is this: before we finish that up, if Sting would have turned, I think Eric Bischoff and a few others have been asked about this before, because it's reality based. So you have to question: would Sting become like Stephen Borden, and would he drop the paint completely, look totally different, maybe grow his? Well, he started to grow his hair back. He had cut his hair, or his hair had been short, but he was starting to grow it out at that point.
Yeah.
So, you know, leads to that question. Who would have fought Hogan at Starrcade if Sting would have turned? I mean, you could have kept Hogan face. Question is, though, it's WCW. It's tradition. It's what started out as a regional product in the South with JCP. Would the fans have got behind a face Hogan if Sting would have been the one to turn? That's what I ask myself. And that's just a what-if question before we finish this up. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't necessarily think they would have.
No. I'll tell you why. I'll explain this to you. So, the reason why I don't think they would get behind a face Hogan is because they weren't behind Hogan before. Obviously,
this
Hogan,
is amplified.
Right. Hogan has been around for so long. He's been the same character. He was the same character for like 10, 12 years at this point. Long time. He was the same character for most of his wrestling career, which was always a good guy. You know, your vitamins and whatever else. And I honestly think Sting would probably be the biggest face, technically, even though he'd be a heel, the biggest face in the entire history of wrestling if he would have turned.
Honestly, at that time, yeah. You make that argument because the heels at this point were really, to the fans, like, oh, that's cool, man. It's new. It's fresh. Yeah, the New World Order. We're sick of, because it's a new chapter for WCW.
Yeah.
To new fans that are being introduced, we talked about tradition.
Yeah.
It goes against the grain.
Yeah.
Bischoff did something completely reality-based, blurred the lines between kayfabe and reality, and what fans should know and what they shouldn't know, who's in the NWO, what's going to happen next, suspense, action. He implements it all so well. And he goes against the grain of your Four Horsemen, which back in the day, they were traditional heels. Mm-hmm. People couldn't stand the Horsemen unless you were a diehard of Flair or any one of them, really. Diehard fan of them. And same goes for the NWO. But at this point, they're not traditional. They are cool, man. The heels are finally, take it to the man. It's kind of like the fans are craving at this time somebody that goes against the grain, that goes against management, that goes against traditional in both products, really, because you see the WWF shift needing their Stone Cold versus Vince rivalry, even though it's not set up yet. Right. And you see the NWO rising up to be the most popular thing going in the sport.
Yeah. So Hulk Hogan turns heel, says, you can call this the New World Order of Wrestling, brother. And completely shifts the wrestling world upside down.
And if you've never watched this clip before, or if you go back and watch it again, either way, never watched it before, or if you go back and watch it again, either try to count, this is my recommendation, either try to count how many objects are being thrown into or at that ring by the fans back when they could get away with this. Oh my God. The heat, man. There's some wrestlers who dream of getting like half that heat, let alone all of it.
Yeah.
So if you've never seen this before, what happens is Hogan comes in, drops a leg on, it was Savage, right?
Savage, yep.
Savage was laid out. You think, his friend.
Yeah.
Goes back to the Mega Powers and all that.
Yeah.
But you'd think, Hogan's here to help. Nope, leg drop. And he doesn't just do it once, he does it a bunch of times.
Yeah.
And, essentially, he gets on the mic. They're like, why? Why would you do this? Why would you join the Outsiders, Nash and Hall? And then he cuts the infamous promo. Says, this is the New World Order of professional wrestling. You don't like it, you can stick it. We're going to do what we want, and we're going to take this business by storm. I mean, just kind of spitballing here. Yeah. I mean, he's getting the heel heat. He's working the crowd. He's pissing everybody off bad.
Oh, yeah.
But if you watch it, oh my God, the amount of trash, like they literally hit Hall in the head with a bunch of stuff, like a bunch of times. They're aiming right at his head.
Yeah.
So it's just insanity, the amount of heat. Like the amount of heat they got. It is the epitome of a heel action, I feel like. It really is. Hogan's turn is. And the birth of the NWO. Because, there's few and far between moments like that where you're like, what did we just see?
Yeah.
Like, at the time, Yeah. So.
Yeah. So, what is your rating for this whole show?
Oh, well, the main event rating, I give that 9 out of 10 to, as close to perfect as you can get without it being like, 5-star, perfect, 10 out of 10, or, off the charts. Great. And it's mainly because of the turn at the end. And it's mainly the match itself was all right. Like you were saying, basic stuff. But it's what happens and who the third man is that takes it over the top. For the whole show, I'm going to give it a solid, actually, 8 out of 10.
Yeah?
Yeah, now there were some dud matches we discussed.
Of course. Yeah.
But I think the good really outweighs the bad here.
I agree.
And it's mainly because of the go home and the main event. And, like I told you, I really enjoyed the Flair Conan match. The opener, there's so I'd say really four really extremely good matches that primarily make that rating up for me. And the few duds bring it down from what I would have done a 9, but I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10, actually. I thoroughly enjoyed going back and watching it again. Excuse me. It's just, it was really starting to snowball downhill. I mean, not downhill, but it was starting to snowball, I should say, or like a domino effect is what I'm trying to say here. And WCW would run with this for as long as they could and make so much money off of it. Really start to make the WWF feel the pressure.
I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 for everything you mentioned. The good really outweighs the bad here. I love this show. I might just watch it again here soon and just enjoy it.
Right. It's that good.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's great. I suggest everyone go back and watch it. Yeah, so everyone knows, next show we'll be reviewing ECW Anarchy Rules 1999, 3 years after this show. And we'll have a special guest, Jake Howell.
Aha, yes, sir, Mr. Howell.
That's right.
Or for our fans of the backyard wrestling community, he's been known as J.K. Howell. He's been featured on Tennessee Backyard Wrestling, DBW. Shout out to my boy Josh Hopkins listening to this. And, just want to give a shout out. Thank all the listeners again. We appreciate everybody tuning in on whatever streaming service you're listening to us on. We truly appreciate it. We want to hear from you. Other than just reviewing this show, is there, any particular thing you want mentioned on the show? Is there like a segment you want us to do? We're looking for ways to, I would say, looking for any type of way to make the show as enjoyable as we can for you, the listeners.
That's right. No, I know a lot of people that listen to this, we're friends of them and we know how they like, they are kind of the same, the way that they talk about wrestling as we are. And I'm sure we would all rate the stuff the same. But I obviously, I love doing this show and I hope everyone likes listening to it, really.
Absolutely.
I like doing this. I like doing this with you because me and you, like we mentioned, are very similar in what we like. So yeah.
Like one of those days, the fans are going to be like, one of these days. Right now, we're pretty calm and we agree, and we're pretty calm and we agree. We're like, yeah, great show. It's been fun to review this. Thank you, fans, for voting it. But one of these days, we'll have a show where we're just different on whether it's a match or a show. You'll be like, oh, this show was great. I loved it. Every single bit of it. And I'll be like, no, there's some vice versa, Yeah, so we'll find that eventually and see how it goes between us, because it'll be a fun little argument when that happens.
It will, yeah. But again, thank you everybody for listening. These do the best on the network. I've noticed the wrestling stuff.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate being your co-hosts, and when we get to host these next time, I will be the host and kind of give background information like you've done on this episode, and I appreciate it, Jared.
Of course. Yeah, so make sure you guys go check out WWE on Peacock, which they have a lot of stuff on there already, which is where I got the shows for the poll from. So definitely go get Peacock, guys. We'll see you next time. For Justin, I'm Jared Weathers. Of course, we love all of you. Oh wait, no, wait. I said it wrong. I love you.